there. Good afternoon. It's great to be with. Can everyone hear me? Okay, good. I'm not as tall as the last panel moderator, so. Well, thanks a lot to Phenix Capital for convening this year's Impact Summit America, and thanks to all of the sponsors for their support. And thanks to all of you for being here and for your commitment to the idea that investment capital can be a critical force for accelerating positive social change. I'm truly delighted to be here representing the Doris Duke Foundation. We're a $2 billion foundation whose mission is to build a more creative, equitable, and sustainable future. And we do that through 5 different national grant-making programs, as well as 2 centers that serve the public, one in New Jersey and one in Hawaii. The title of this address, which you can't miss up there, is How Foundations Can Invest for Change. And this is a topic that's obviously existentially important to us. So I'd like to reassure you that I will try to answer this question in ways that I hope are morally consonant with the broad thrust of impact investing, that are relevant to you and your work, and that are provocative as we work together to push the envelope on how to mobilize diverse sources of capital to serve social purposes. But to get there, I think it's important to first consider the larger context for the broad range of practices from negative screening to ESG to impact investing that seek to serve social ends through the tools of high finance. And by larger context, I don't just mean macro trends shaping capital markets or even capitalism as an economic structure. I mean the underlying natural and social forces for which financial measures are basically a contemporary proxy. So what I'll do instead is start by approaching the question of how foundations can invest for change through the overall theme of the conference, which is reimagining the purpose of capital. And to do that, I want to take just a few minutes to provide an entire history of human existence, or at least the highlights. So nearly all terrestrial energy originates from the sun and is stored in what we call organic compounds, meaning something containing bonds of hydrogen and carbon, hence hydrocarbons for fossil fuels. And for the vast, vast majority of about the 250,000 years that Homo sapiens have been around, we have essentially expended an entire day's calories just trying to get out of the earth the energy in caloric form that will sustain us just for the next day. That's most of our history. And fire was an important part of this process, but the first real game changer was about 12,000 to 14,000 years ago when we began to cultivate agriculture and livestock. For the first time, we could begin to quote unquote store some calories through harvest and through the managed raising and slaughter of animals. Organized farming also allowed many individuals and even some communities to produce an energy surplus. They could extract more calories from the ground than they needed. And this enabled specialization and the growth of more complex societies. People could do other work other than agriculture and farming, be paid, and then they could purchase those calories with however they were paid. And despite this wondrous advance in our ability to get the sun's energy out of the ground, most people in this world still spent most of their day working for the next day's calories, either directly through agriculture, livestock, or hunting, or indirectly through remunerative work that was really only sufficient for basic subsistence. So the most significant innovation that allowed us to attain energy abundance between the inception of agriculture and the modern world was a social innovation, and it was the introduction of class stratification. What we figured out was that a few people could enjoy total energy abundance, but only under the following conditions. First, the vast majority of people would have to continue to toil to extract calories from nature, and second, the surplus calories extracted, everything the workers didn't need to survive, had to be transferred to the few in the form of wealth. So to enable the benefits of energy surplus, we needed at least a vast underclass, and quite often, truly odious forms of bondage, feudalism, serfdom, chattel slavery. These are all things to create energy abundance for a few people. But even at this extreme moral cost, you can begin to see the power of energy abundance to change society. It's energy abundance that gives us industry, culture, transportation, movement, exploration, economic and social development, knowledge, arts, letters, and society. The irony, of course, is that a set of grotesquely inegalitarian social systems that we reproduced in various forms for millennia, literally, also brought into being the very things we most associate with the intrinsic value of being human. And then, in the mid-19th century, everything changed. Through the combination of advances like steam power and the mining, refinement, and combustion of fossil fuels, we were able, in one single leap, to suddenly industrialize the liberation of the sun's energy from the earth. And it's really difficult to overstate the magnitude of this moment. In the span of one generation, the task of acquiring energy went from an entire day's marginal product for all of humanity, all the way down to the province of a single industry in a much larger industrial system. So at this moment in history, the human population line, if you look at a chart, bends from a gentle slope over the course of human history into a vertical hockey stick. And in the industrial scale, extraction and combustion of carbon increased our capacity to grow the human population by a factor of 50. That's what that line is showing. And it did this by making food cheap and easy to produce and distribute. It also did this by making medicine better and cheaper. This means the kind of material prosperity we might see as a frivolous commonplace now, such as the greater availability and affordability of consumer goods. But it also means the kind of material prosperity we would see as serious, the opportunity for leisure in pursuits outside of remunerative labor for all social classes, the time to enjoy non-productive goods such as art and culture. It even means the kind of material prosperity we would see as deadly serious. For example, the high probability that all of your children will make it to 5 years of age, beyond 5 years of age. So even as we are in a moment of profound concern about what this industrial system is doing to our planet, we can't forget that it is a system that fulfilled the promise of Prometheus, the mythical figure who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humans in order to free them from the caprice of the gods and to make them masters of their own fate. A carbon-based economy literally gave us control over the power of the sun, which for so many eons had been locked away beyond our grasp. The second, more technical point that I want to make is that this industrial system was made possible by a form of financialized capitalism that sees an ever-increasing marginal propensity to consume as coincident with prosperity. In a world where energy abundance is the prize, this makes sense. If what we want is people to get their hands on energy through food as cheaply as possible, then the velocity of capital should be oriented toward continually increasing our marginal desire to have more. To do this requires more options and lower prices. This is what short-termism is really good for, right? It drives productive efficiencies within a marketplace. And so this is what our industrial system is phenomenal at, figuring out ways to produce more for less. And again, for most of human existence, the fit between the line of increasing well-being, of human flourishing, and the line of increasing consumption was quite tight. The more you had, the better off you were, really, actually, meaningfully. And this brings me to a third point, which is that the increasing marginal propensity to consume is no longer tightly correlated with gains in human flourishing. In fact, in some areas, the relationship has become positively discontinuous. A good example is food. Cheap food is killing us, literally. 4 in 10 Americans now suffer from obesity. Some would argue, in another example, that cheap, ubiquitous, on-demand entertainment and cheap, ubiquitous digital social interaction might actually be making us mentally unwell. But the biggest discontinuity is at the level of the whole energy system. Rendering terrestrial energy into finished goods and services available in ever greater varieties and at ever lower prices has melted down nature's ability to sustainably offer us the sun's energy in ways that enable us to flourish and prosper. When we crash ecosystems so that we can no longer grow crops or harvest fish, we are in essence destroying the layers of organic matter we have so cleverly exploited during our history to exit and then leave in the dust the penurious, destitute, and indigent existence of prehistory. This is not just a crisis for capitalism. It is an epochal crisis for structures and systems of institutional capital that were largely designed to keep juicing a system built on and for consumption. So now we can finally talk about investing for impact. But I hope you agree it was worth the journey that it took us to get here, because understanding this sweeping historical context helps us to understand that what you are doing when you are doing the work of impact investing is not just putting the tools of capitalism to work for a set of non-financial goods. What you are doing is much bolder. It's re-engineering the hardware of capitalism itself to undo the unintended consequences of an intended outcome. So together we are making an audacious, almost hubristic bet that we can take the economic system that caused this problem in the first place and make it part of the solution. So how do we do that? I'm not going to spend time rehearsing the merits of the various tools of finance that can be harnessed for impact. You know most of those, and others in today's program can opine on the nuances and how these tools are used and deployed far better than I can. What I'd like to do instead is conclude by discussing what I think organizational leadership needs to look like if we're going to invest for impact effectively, sustainably, and at a scale tantamount to the scale of the problem. Our approach to impact investing at Doris Duke Foundation stems from our overall approach to what it means to be a foundation in the first place. What we are doing at Doris Duke is what I would describe as a kind of philanthropy of now. And a philanthropy of now is realistic and alive to how the world is fundamentally changing. It is creative in imagining different possible futures. It is optimistic in its confidence that these futures can be rigorously obtained, delivering on their possibility and their promise. And it seeks to use tools well beyond our grants to advance social progress. That last bit is important. I think a philanthropy of today has to be authentic to the magnitude of the moment, willing to use any and every tool needed to address pressing problems, relentless in interrogating those problems, and willing to respond with impatience and with novelty. And we believe this is a spirit that's true to our founder. 2 words really describe Doris Duke. First, she was modern. She evolved with the times in her tastes and her passions and her philanthropy. She was always of the moment that she was in. And second, she was transgressive. And by that, I don't mean breaking the rules so much as recognizing when old ways of thinking are obsolete and willing to see things in a different way. So how are we applying this outlook, this modern and transgressive outlook to investing for impact? It's through an approach we call integrated impact investing. And we define integrated impact investing as the application of investing concepts as a strategic tool for maximizing the foundation-aligned impact achievable by all of the foundation's assets and activities. At Doris Duke, we don't spend a lot of time thinking about the 5% of our endowment that we're required to spend and the 95% that we invest for financial returns. We don't think about whether making a grant is quote unquote what a foundation does. Instead, we view our collective charge as maximizing the value of our combined assets in pursuit of our mission to build a more creative, equitable, and sustainable future. And when I say combined, I mean combined. Our money and the various ways we can invest it, our facilities, our people, their know-how, all of those things. And to do this, we need to get the highest marginal return on each asset. And we believe the most return maximizing thing we can do, and it's quite simple to say, but hard in practice, is to match the right tool to the right problem, as opposed to trying to fit the problem to the tool that you have. We think some of the greatest social inefficiencies in our sector stem from this mismatch, too often trying to fit the problem down to the tool. For example, grants are great when the variable of time accounts for the gap between the perceived marginal social benefit of an activity and its marginal economic cost. Tools of communication, such as convening or thought leadership like this, work well when there is momentum in systems of public and private expenditure to address a social problem at scale, but inadequate direction in which to channel that momentum. And return-seeking investments work when the marginal social and marginal economic benefits are aligned. So this idea that we want to maximize the marginal return on every asset is the basic philosophy behind integrated impact investing. And it provides the first 2 parts of the answer to the question, how can foundations invest for change? First, account for the full range of tools available to you. And second, exercise rigor and diligence in matching tools to problems of relevance to your mission. Translating that philosophy into practice has led us to 2 basic categories of investing for impact. The first category is about endowment capital, so we have a very clever name for it, endowment integrated impact investing. You guys need lunch. It's like there's no way to get a reaction out of this crowd. So this body of work, endowment integrated impact investing, uses the return-seeking tools that we have access to drive impact. So a lot of people would call this mission-related investing. But we gave it a different name because we want to be very clear that these investments cannot exhibit any concession to our financial objectives. That's because in an efficient market, financial returns should correlate to value creation. If we're making these investments where market-driven value creation aligns with social impact, then there should be no gap whatsoever between the social return and the financial return. Moreover, these investments should go to players who are seeking market-driven returns as their theory of how to achieve impact. So examples of endowment integrated impact investing include things like early-stage venture in electric vehicles technology or in biotechnology. These are domains where a lot of the most compelling social impact potential is in the venture space, given the velocity of tech-enabled innovation, but where no one should be offering a concession on returns. The second category of integrated impact investing we call program integrated impact investing. And this category is about applying the knowledge of finance, acumen in finance activities, to our normal charitable distributions. Program integrated impact investing seeks to identify and drive the application of non-grant concessionary vehicles, but only when these are the best pathways to impact. So in this category are things we know, like below market rate loans, loan guarantees, and other potential concessionary terms that could contribute momentum to an underlying asset. So catalytic capital, as we heard in the last panel. These are quite powerful but underutilized tools because they require skills that the typical foundation program leader may not have. Examples of program integrated impact investing might include a loan or loan guarantee for conservation or economic development project that can then be leveraged into far larger amounts of senior debt, for example, from institutions like investment banks. That's the catalytic action happening. This practical model provides the third and fourth parts of the answer, how can foundations invest for change? They can regard their financial assets as both capital and financial expertise, And they can take an active approach, guiding the application of that capital and that expertise in ways that conduce to social impact by design. In effect, this is another way to further mitigate matching inefficiencies. Okay, so we did it. We made it to the end. So how can foundations invest for change? 4 things. First, take a wider view of the social value of all of your assets, tangible and intangible. Second, match those assets to the problems that best suit their attributes. Third, mobilize your financial capital as an investable asset that brings with it investable expertise. And fourth, adopt active deployments of those assets and expertise that you guide as a function of organizational strategy. In adopting these approaches, we are not merely aligning more of our activities with our missions. We are rewiring a financial and industrial system that achieved miraculous, world-changing successes, but that has also brought us to the brink of catastrophic, world-destroying failure. And we should remember that even as we hurtle toward what feels like a bleak and terrifying future, what got us here was an enterprising ingenuity that allowed us to steal for ourselves the very power of the gods. If we can put that ingenuity to work for a new system seeking new ends, then we might just achieve them. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.